Hey guys, it's day number 7. You know what that means? Chapter 7. That's right, Matthew chapter 7. We're going to dive into that in just a second. But first, I want to ask you a question. How do you picture Jesus? When he was here on the earth, how do you picture him? Do you see him as this all business, no nonsense, strutting around, pointing out people's sins? Or do you see him the way the Bible actually described him? As a friendly, happy go lucky guy that, he was engaging, he was gathering crowds, he was bringing people together. He was going to parties, he was going to feasts, he was engaging with people in the world. That's what Jesus was. Jesus was all over the place. He was having a good time. He was living the full life. That's what Jesus did. So chapter 7 is actually the third part or the third chapter of the Sermon on the Mount series, which chapters 5, 6, and 7. For those of you who don't know, the Sermon on the Mount was a sermon on a mount. So Sermon on the Mount. Makes sense. So he was in the third phase of this Sermon on the Mount when he's going into chapter 7. Now, chapter 7, he talks about a ton of stuff. But the first part of chapter 7 is talking about judging. Now, judging isn't typically a place where a pastor would slide in a joke, right? Like that's kind of a condemning section of scripture. It's talking about judging and don't judge. And if you judge someone by that same measure, you too will be judged. That's what chapter 7, verses 1 and 2 are talking about. But then he goes into this analogy. Jesus talks about this analogy, and I think he was being funny. I think Jesus' sense of humor is a way that he got points across to the people. He made these points, he brought in some humor, he brought in some levity, and allowed people to relax and really open up and listen to him and learn from him. So Jesus was funny. So in chapter 7, I'm going to jump into verse 3. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? So what Jesus is saying is to deal with your own stuff first. Take care of your own problems. You have problems. Don't judge other people. First, take care of your own stuff. But the way that he did it was really funny. He talks about a speck of dust. You see a speck of dust in your brother's eye, and you don't even see the plank in your own eye. He's talking about a speck of dust, like this little tiny speck on my finger. Can you see that little speck? Okay, there's a speck of dust on my finger. You can't even see it. It's so tiny. You have a speck of dust in your brother's eye, and you don't even notice that there's a plank in your own eye. A plank. There's a plank in your eye. Do you see it? I can't see if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. Okay. There's a plank in your own eye, and you can't make out the speck in your brother's eye. So deal with the plank in your own eye first. That's the message. That's the lesson. But this humorous, clever analogy that Jesus used is what broke people down. It's what brought people in, that Jesus had this engaging personality. So I think there are two takeaways. Obviously, the lesson here, don't judge people. You have plenty going on in your life. Fix your life. You have stuff going on. You have problems. I have problems. I'm going to worry about my stuff. That's what the first part of this is. But then the second part is have fun, laugh, smile, enjoy the time with the people that are around you. That's what Jesus wanted us to do, and that's what Jesus did. That's chapter 7.